Hey, Sean.
Shannon.
We're going to talk about Ultimate Frisbee. If you've never played before, we're going to go through some of the basics to get you out on the field so that you can fit in well with the team and have fun. The basic objective of Ultimate Frisbee is to catch the disc while you are in the end zone. When you're elsewhere on the field, and we'll talk more about this, but if you catch it, you get to slow down. So if you catch it and you're running a little bit, you get to just stop and throw it from there. In the end zone, however, if you catch it and run into the end zone, you have to step back out until you're outside of the end zone, and then you can throw it again. So for it to be a point, you have to be already in the end zone, and then you catch the disc. So when you throw the disc, just like in basketball, you have to keep a foot planted. If you take steps, it's a travel, and we'll call that as a foul. So pick one foot and keep it planted. As a general rule, if you're right-handed, you want your left foot to be your pivot foot, and if you're left-handed, you want your right foot to be your pivot foot. And we do that so that way you can sort of get as much distance away from your pivot foot as possible, where if I keep my right foot as my pivot, I really can't stretch as far to get around my defender. So if you're right-handed, left foot; if you're left-handed, right foot is your pivot. When you're ready to throw the disc, it is so important that you throw it to a person. As you will hear us say over and over, discs aren't magic. And what we mean by that is you're going to have this urge in you. You're going to see somebody who's waving their hands and saying, "I'm open, throw it to me." Only you're just going to wind up and twist your arm in that direction. But the disc isn't going to go exactly to that person because discs aren't magic. So when you go to throw it to someone, it's always a good idea to make eye contact with the person so that they know the disc is coming. So that way you don't surprise anyone or hit anyone who's not paying attention. But if I were to throw it to Shannon, I'm gonna make eye contact, I'm gonna throw it right to her, or I'm gonna throw it right to where she's going so that if she's running, if she's in motion, if she's headed toward the end zone, I'm gonna throw it before she's in the end zone so that she can catch it once she's there. When you're ready to throw the disc, you can throw anywhere on the field. You can throw downfield, you can throw behind you, you can throw side to side, as long as you throw in bounds. But the one thing you cannot do is dangerously throw the disc into your defender. So if Shannon was playing defense on me, even if there's somebody open right behind her, you are not allowed to just wind up and try to throw through your defender, or especially if there's people who aren't paying attention, who are paying attention to the people that they're guarding. You don't want to throw dangerously where you could hit anyone who's not paying attention, because that's also going to be an incomplete throw. So after you've thrown the disc, it's up to somebody to catch the disc. And when you catch the disc, you're allowed to take a reasonable number of steps to slow down, so long as you are actively slowing down the whole time and that you're not turning to try to run around anyone. You have to slow down in a straight line. So if Shannon is coming to catch the disc, when she catches it, she's allowed to safely slow down so long as she doesn't change her direction. We're not going to count the number of steps. There's no rule about you get 3 steps to slow down or anything like that like you have in basketball. The exception to this is if she happened to run into the end zone, she has to come back out to the edge of the end zone, tap the disc on the ground, and then she's allowed to play. In general, when you're catching a disc, you want to use as many hands as possible. If you can catch with 2 hands, you should catch with 2 hands. But sometimes the disc is too high. Oh, that was a bad throw. Sometimes the disc will be too high and you can only reach up and grab, and you drop it in front of everyone. When you catch the disc, you want to catch it with as many hands as possible. Always try to catch with 2 hands if you can. Sometimes there'll be a throw that's just outside of your reach and you can only reach out with 1 hand and grab it. Don't try to be a hero and catch with 1 hand if you don't have to. Always try to catch it with 2 hands, and the best way is with 1 hand on top and 1 hand on bottom, just like that. They say like an alligator, but people also say like a pancake, but I don't catch pancakes like this. I catch pancakes with my mouth. Was that cool? Did you catch it? I didn't look. Once you catch the disc, you're not allowed to run with the disc. Unlike football, after you catch that great long pass that's out in front of you, you can't just run. You've got to slow down in that straight line, come to a stop, and then you pick someone else to throw to, and that's how we advance the disc down the field, 1 throw at a time. So if you're not throwing the disc, you should be actively trying to put yourself in a space where you can catch it. And if you're standing still, in general, that's a bad place to be, because if I'm standing here and Shannon tries to throw me the disc, my defender is going to have a very, very easy time catching it. However, if we're back here, The best thing for me to do is to move to a place where my defender isn't guarding me or isn't able to guard me, so that way I can get open and get the disc somewhere where I'll be able to throw it to someone a lot easier. Ultimate is played 7-on-7, so at any given time, one person is holding the disc ready to throw it, and there's 6 teammates who are eligible to go and catch that disc. With those 6 teammates, there's 6 opponents guarding them, and so if everyone stays clustered together standing still, it's really difficult to throw into those 12 people and hope to have a completed pass. So, as a team, you want to work out a strategy where you're taking turns to cut to space on the field that's open where no other defenders are, so that way you can have a throw go out into that space and you can get there to catch the disc and have a bunch of progress on the field and be able to have an open throw down the field, ultimately to score a point. So when you're playing defense and you're guarding the person who has the disc who's about to throw it, there's a couple things you need to keep in mind. First, you're not allowed to get closer to them than the width of a disc. You can put your body about this close. You're gonna get in the moment, you're gonna get excited, and you think you're gonna come in and play defense really, really closely. If somebody does that to you, just hold the disc out in front of you to remind them that that is the amount of space that you have to give them. Once you're in position, and you're actively marking someone, you can begin counting to 10. And the way we do that is we say the word stalling, and then we count 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10. And if you get to 10, then it's a stall and it's a turnover if they haven't thrown it by the time you've said 10. Be careful not to count too quickly. There is a foul called a fast count, where if you come up, you say stalling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're gonna call fast count on you, and it stops the game, and it's a big pain in the butt. So just count reasonably. You're supposed to say one number every second. It should have about 10 seconds from start to finish. So count it out slowly, get a good pace. Make sure you start with the word stalling and go from there. As a general strategy, especially at this level of the game, if you're new to it, if you're playing with other new players, when you're guarding, you want to keep your hands low. If you lift your hands up like in basketball to try to block a throw, there's not a lot of throws coming up here, and your thrower is going to have a really easy time throwing around you. Whereas if you spend your time blocking these throws, if they do throw something high and over your head, the odds are it's going to be kind of a bad throw, because we get right back into that discs aren't magic thing, and they're going to just huck it blindly somewhere, and it's not going to be a completed pass. So in general, make sure you keep your hands low and don't bite when they try to lift the disc up to make you put your hands up, because they'll get that really easy throw. When you're guarding somebody, unlike in basketball, the disc is an extension of their body, and if I touch the disc while she's trying to throw it, that's a foul. Just like touching her is a foul. Any contact that you make with any person or contact that they make with you is a foul. So remember that the disc is an extension of that, so you can't be trying to hit the disc while they're throwing. That's a foul. Keep that space, give them the disc space, and don't touch the disc, or it'll be a foul. In Ultimate, when you're guarding, picture the 2 longest points on your arms, and for most people, that's your middle fingers. And you have to imagine a string connecting your 2 middle fingers. When you're guarding someone, you are not allowed to touch this string to the person. And so if I were guarding Shannon and I would try to like wrap my arms around her, even if there was a disc space here, if this string touches her, that's a foul. And so it's important to remember that when you're guarding, if you do want to reach, you can't keep both hands around them where that string would be touching them. If you're going to reach in with one hand, you have to pull the other hand back. This is really, really tough to get the hang of for some people, and that's fine, but we need to work together as defenders and as throwers. And if you find yourself trying to throw the disc and there's just hands around you, that shouldn't be the way it feels to throw, and that's going to be a harder throw, which is why the rules say you can't do that. So we need to remind ourselves, we call it the wrap. And you can say, hey, don't wrap. Make sure you don't wrap, because if you wrap around somebody, that's going to be a foul, and it's going to stop the game, and we're going to have a lot less fun. So when you get in there, make sure you leave that disc space, keep your hands low, and if you're going to reach in any direction, make sure you pull the other hand back so that way you never touch that string between your fingers to the thrower. So in Ultimate, a foul is something that stops play. And even at a national level, in the college championships, everyone calls their own fouls. It's not like basketball or football where you're looking for a ref to call something. If you get fouled, it's up to you to say you were fouled. And if you foul someone, they're going to call you on the foul. So you never get into that place where it's like, oh, the ref's not watching, you can get away with this. You're going to be kept honest by your opponents and by your own teammates. And if you foul people, all that does is slow down the game. It is written into the rules in a way that it's never advantageous to foul. a lot of times in football and especially basketball, during the last minute of the game, it makes sense to foul. It's a part of your strategy. Ultimate rules are written in a way where it never makes sense to foul and stop the game, because all it's going to do is allow your defenders to catch up or your offense to have even more space. You're going to stop, it's going to be annoying, and then you have to pick up with no advantage for the people who committed the foul. In general, any contact that a player makes with another player is a foul on the player who initiated that contact. So if Shannon's throwing and I'm reaching and I hit her as I'm trying to mark her, she's going to call foul, and that's going to stop the game. By the same token, if I have legal position, if I'm not doing anything and she were to hit me or hit my body, she would be initiating the contact and she would be committing the foul. So fouls can happen while someone is trying to throw the disc and they're being marked, but fouls can also happen away from the disc, and especially while people are trying to catch it. Where if Shannon were trying to run to catch a disc and I'm boxing her out of the way, that's a foul if I initiate contact with her. Some amount of incidental contact is okay and it becomes a part of the game, but if that contact makes it so that Shannon cannot catch the disc, then that's a foul and Shannon can call that foul. Foul has sort of a negative connotation to it, but the truth is that a lot of fouls happen accidentally and they're a part of the game, and it's just something we need to make sure that we control our bodies in a way where we're not colliding with people. But just because you foul someone doesn't mean you were trying to be mean. If somebody fouls you, a lot of times it's just because a lot of things are happening quickly. You're trying to play defense and you just forget the wrap rule for a second. Fouling isn't a mean thing. They happen accidentally all the time and it's fine. But that's why we all need to understand the rules and work together to make sure that we're fouling as little as possible to keep the game moving, because when you actually get to play the game, that's when you have a whole lot more fun. So when a foul occurs, somebody's going to yell foul. So if Shannon's trying to throw it and I hit her in some way,
Foul.
she's gonna call foul. Anytime a foul gets called, two things happen. First, anyone who hears the foul call yells foul. We just want it to echo so that everyone knows the foul's been called and play stops. So if you hear foul, stop running, don't finish your cut really deep, just come to a stop because the play stops and we have to do something. And that something is whoever the foul was called on. So if I hit Shannon and she calls foul, then I say either contest or no contest. And contest means I don't think what I did was a foul. And sometimes, again, with these things being accidental, with these things happening in motion, with two people going for the disc, it can be kind of a gray area on who hit who. And so if you know, like, oh, hey, she was trying to throw it and I know I hit her, then you say no contest, and depending on the foul, play will go on in a certain way. So if I was stalling Shannon, I was stall 6, stall 7,
Foul.
no contest. The stall's going to reset to 0 and we'll start playing again. And so depending on if it's a throw where she can't get to it because I foul her, if I know I did foul her and I say no contest, she gets the disc where she would have caught it. And so that's why it's never advantageous to foul, like, oh, I want to keep her from catching it, because if I foul her, she's just going to get the disc as though I hadn't fouled her. So that's why we try to minimize fouls. So if somebody calls a foul and you take a moment, everybody stop, and you're going to say either contest or no contest. And a lot of times if we're both going for the disc and I foul her while we're trying to catch it, and I say contest, I don't think I fouled you, then what happens is we send the disc back to the person who threw it. We go back to where we were when that person threw it, and we just try it again. And so that's the best case scenario, is they get another shot. So it never makes sense to go out and foul someone, because they're either guaranteed to get the disc if you did foul them, and if you think you didn't, they're just going to get another chance to try again. Lastly, but most importantly, Ultimate is governed by something we call spirit of the game. And spirit of the game in a nutshell is that we want to be competitive, but never at the risk of sportsmanship. And so even when things are intense and when you've got great athletes throwing and catching and playing good defense on each other, we never want to do it in a way where we get angry with people, where we get overly aggressive with people, overly competitive to the point where we risk hurting somebody or risk making a bad time for our teammates or our opponents. At the end of games, you want to have a good time. You line up, we get in a circle with opponents, every other person. We call it a spirit circle, where you get every other person, your team, the opponents, your team, the opponents, and we talk about highlights. We talk about what we liked about the game, some things that we maybe struggled with, and that's how we all get better as a team, as a community. The spirit of the game makes it so that Ultimate exists around the world in a really cool way, where if you ever get the opportunity to play in tournaments around the city, the state, the country, or the world, everyone's sort of fun to get along with, and that's built into the rules, and that's why we don't foul each other. But it's really important to keep in mind that the game doesn't really have space for jerks. Because we call our own fouls, you're never going to have a good time going out and just playing so hard that you're hitting people and you're fouling people, just anything to get that point, because people aren't going to want you on their team and people aren't going to want to play against you. So have fun out there, but never at the expense of good sportsmanship, because in the end, we're all sort of on the same big team playing this game around the world, and it's a really, really good time to be a part of that team, and I'm eager and excited to play with all of you out on the field. Thanks for watching. Good luck.